So basically, I'm gonna go over how I pretty much chose which schools to apply to, and then what maybe possibly you should consider when you're applying to different schools. I applied in the I believe it's the 2019 cycle. I applied in the 2019 cycle for PA school. That was my first time applying. And then I applied to about 10 schools. So I made the decision for 10 schools. I considered a lot of things while applying to PA school. So I'll basically go over some of the things that I considered, and some things that you might want to think about as you're applying for these physician assistant schools. So for one, something that I definitely considered is the cost of a PA school. I considered the cost because you also have to think when you become a PA, you will make a pretty decent salary, but at the same time, if you don't have to go into a lot of debt for a PA program, then why would you? So that was pretty much my thought process on reasoning for that. So I limited the amount that as far as like if I wanted to apply to a school, even if I liked it, I limited my schools to a certain range of money that I was willing to pay. If I wasn't willing to pay like this much for that degree, I wasn't going to do it. So my goal for applying to PA school is when I applied to physician assistant school, for me personally, I wanted it to be under $100,000. That was me. Because I knew that as the PA's salary starts going and it starts to get higher and higher, you usually range around 100,000. So for me, I preferred a school that was under that amount. So all the schools that I applied to, all my 10, they fit that criteria. And that was just something that was important to me, but it might be something new that you might want to consider when applying to PA school, because you will have to pay that money back when you do take it out for loans. Another thing that I considered when I looked at physician assistant school is I considered for one, like the location. If you want like a PA school like in a certain location, I also think you would want what kind of hospitals is it near? Like what is the environment like around there? So I mean, those are some different factors that I considered while applying to PA school and while looking into these different programs, because I wanted to see not only what the program was like, but also like what the hospitals like, and just like what the overall like environment was like, because that's important because you're going to be spending the next 2 years there. And I wanted to look at the quality of the program. You want to check the PANCE pass rate, because the PANCE, for those that don't know, when you finally graduate from PA school, you have to take a PANCE test, and if you pass that, then you can finally become a PA and you can practice with all the different other stuff that you have to do as far as like the credentialing and whatnot. But like that PANCE is like the main test that you have to pass at the end of PA school. So you want that to be pretty high, because for first time test takers, usually schools, they'll post what their scores are for first time test takers and if they pass the PANCE or not. So that can also tell you about like the quality of a program, how high the PANCE pass rate is and how well prepared you are to take that test and to be a PA. So I definitely took that into consideration while applying to different PA schools. I considered like the learning style, like if you see what the classes are like and ask what the students are like, how they study, what the environment is like for them. So I mean, that can give you kind of like a good idea, like, oh, okay, like can you see yourself studying there? Like can you see yourself being there? So that was another thing that I could pretty much consider. Now, when I applied to my 10 schools I applied to, I considered all of these. There were some schools that you also have to think, what do they consider? So as far as out of state, I'm currently, I've got accepted into an in-state school. I also applied to out-of-state schools, but one thing that I did consider when applying to out-of-state schools is I applied to mostly private schools. I know that I applied to private schools because I know that when they're private, they tend to not favor in-state. So another important thing to look at and that I took notice of is like when you apply to an out-of-state school, look and see how many out-of-state students they're accepting. So if you're not like amazing, and if they have a class of 90 and they're only accepting like 4 students from out of state, if you're not amazing, you're probably not going to get that spot for the 4 person. So I thought about that also, like like how many students are you accepting out of state if you're a public school. So if I applied to, for example, if I applied to, I'm just making this up, let's say I applied to University of Kentucky or something like that, and they're a public school, like what, if they don't accept that many people from like my state, then like why, for me, I just didn't see the purpose of applying there. I didn't feel like, that I didn't have as good as a chance as somebody that was in state. So I definitely took advantage of that. I applied to about all my in-state schools. I think I applied to all of them. And then also, for out of state, I did apply to mostly private schools. So within the cost range, of course, but I did apply to mostly private schools. So that is definitely something that I took a look at. And I would definitely consider while you're applying to school, just take a look at to see how many people they accept in state and out of state. And then as far as the number goes, for like the number of schools that you apply to, it's good to apply to at least, I know the average is from 7 to 8. And for me, I was an odd case because my first interview is where I'm going now. So, but at the same time, do I regret paying for or doing like the 10 schools or applying to the 10 schools? No, I don't regret it because, I think that's something that's normal, because just in case if you couldn't get into this school or anything like that, I think it would be a good idea to at least widen your base, because there are some schools that I thought, oh, I probably have a really good chance of getting in them, and then I didn't get in them. And there's some schools that were like on the reach side that I was like, oh, maybe not. And then those were the schools that actually wanted me. So it's just like kind of like a weird thing, because you don't really know what the school is looking for. You don't know what they want. So even though you may think like, okay, this school seems easier to get in, maybe they'll like me better here, that might not always be the case. And there might be something that another school that you might be higher up on your list see something in you like more special, and they might want you there instead. So I say just broaden your range. Make sure there's some schools that are on your reach. Make sure that there's some schools that are in your safety, and then just in between. And then just see where you land. I definitely recommend applying. Don't apply to just like 1 or 2 schools. I recommend just applying to multiple, because that gives you multiple options and stuff. And then if you don't hear back from one, then you're not stressing because you have like more schools that you have to hear back from. So this is my advice basically for choosing your PA schools that you're going to be applying to for this cycle or upcoming cycles. So definitely these were things that I took into consideration, and they definitely helped me decide what schools that I wanted to apply to. So be sure to subscribe and like this video if you like more videos like this, and I'll be posting more. And until then, we'll see you next time.